you know. But anyway, um, but listen, why don't we do one of, you said two, well, you said like 6 points within
Right.
2 points, right? So why don't we
Hmm.
do one from each, a couple of your points, then we do a couple of my points, and I have a feeling that'll take up a lot, and then we have lots more to discuss. Um, because there's so much stuff happening every day, right?
Yes.
That I'm seeing online. It's a little scary. So you had put forward AI, the future of work, legal framework for AI, current status and gaps. Because I'm not that smart, we'll keep the legal framework, really small. How's that? Um, uh, as this talk show continues, and I get around to doing stuff, I'll have answers for you on legal framework. But I'm being facetious as usual. Um, but
Yes.
um, but so I mean, like, so before I jump into my screed about how I'm using AI and how I'm scared of it, um, in terms of its crazy efficiency, um, your what are you doing with AI with in your own workflow? Like, how is it helping right now? How is it speeding up things for you, or
Yeah.
for your programmers? How's that
Yeah.
working? Like, are you using code generation every day in everything you do? What's the update right now? I mean, obviously these are questions we'll ask other people that come on the show as well. But first to you.
Yeah. So I think we have already entered that era where all the programmers need the AI tools all the time. Like they are not um, they do not take the code or anything that is generated and just blindly put it somewhere, but it
Yeah.
is the go-to tool all the time. Just like you cannot do without Google, because you need documentation, right? So you if in the past, in let's say 20 years ago, if you see the transition 20 years
Yeah.
ago, when you were doing any kind of software development, you would get your development tools and you would get the documentation with the development tool. So walking from that point where the work let's say
You
the
mean
workflow.
So what you mean is when you say documentation with the development, so your development environment is there, you have your documentation. Is that what you mean? Or like, so
Yes.
right now you're still using a development environment to make your stuff. Um, and then on the side, your guys are, or you are got your generative AI here. You ask a question, it gives you some code. How do you work that in? Do you just start testing it? What's your present workflow? Obviously, it's going to change in 6 months, right? But what's your
Yeah.
present work?
So the present workflow, I think that most of my programmers are using nowadays is when they are given a task. Okay. Um, it depends a little bit on the task, right? If the task is something straightforward, like they go into the development tool and they're just supposed to write some code, then they do that. Okay,
Yeah,
actually. But if they are supposed to do something which requires even a little bit of R&D. Okay, now when I say little bit, I mean really little bit, right? Like if I say, okay, I want this part of the screen to move from here to there.
yeah,
Okay, so this is different from a situation where I say, okay, I want this text displayed here. So the person goes and types the text and makes it bold or something, right? But I want a transition effect. So I want this to go from left to right. Now that transition effect, the way a person would have done in the past is they would have gone to the CSS library code, right? Whatever they were using, and they would have said, okay, what is the facility available in transition? And then they would come and try it out and code it and all that, right?
yeah.
And that would have taken them about half an hour to an hour to get it right, if depending on how complex the transition is and all that stuff. Now that is gone, right? So now you don't go to the documentation first. Now you first go to AI, right? And you will say that, okay, I have to transition a div from the left screen to the right of the screen and give me the CSS. And and you might put in some more information like, okay, I'm using Tailwind or I'm using Bootstrap or something of that sort.
Yeah.
And instantly it will generate the code. Now, the thing is, it's not that the developer will take that code and put it in, right? But immediately is,
Oh,
first of
your
all,
audio just cut out.
hello.
Yeah, now it came back.
Yeah. Yeah. So what it gives him is instantly he knows, first of all, what the code will roughly look like, what elements of CSS and all will be involved. And in some, I mean, maybe most of the time, he would be in a position to take that piece of code, slightly tweak it, and put it in,
Yeah.
right? So that half an hour of R&D research, going to Google, going and finding the right effects, because obviously all development involves so many things that no programmer knows anything by heart, right? It's not possible, right? You have to refer constantly. The tool helps you, the development environment helps you by providing you information, but ultimately you have to look up because it's all APIs and you know documented stuff. So to retrieve the documented information, would have to go in the past in a structured way, right? First you go to the document and then you go down the tree and you say, okay, this is what I need, and plus I need that. All this is gone, right? So AI is getting all the information, putting it all into what you need, and giving it to you in a ready made. Now
Yeah.
it
So that's good.
yeah.
But for you as a lead, what's that changing in terms of your expectations? So you have, 5 developers doing X project. Are you already seeing that, oh, okay, I can take on more projects or I can take on more developers? My lead time is much lower. Like, have you actually seen right now, the last 6 months, your ability to say, hey, I can do just this much more with the same guys?
It's more than that. I so the developers can of course do much more. That's one thing, but more importantly, they can do different things. Okay, so in the past, if I had a developer who was a, let's say, a .NET person and working on .NET, he could do anything in .NET. I would tell him. And if I told him, okay, here's a piece of Python code, and I need, and it's this is Python code is your backend, and you might have to adjust this a little bit, make one more API or something. He would be completely lost, right? He would have no clue.
API is an interface that lists out the function calls that some random programmer will program against.
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
yeah, please, yeah. So what has happened is the f- the fear of technical, movement has
yeah.
reduced. This is
So
an
suddenly you can't. So, well, it's also their ability to say no. Some has also reduced because you say, "Hey, do this in .NET for me." They're like, well, "I'm not a .NET engineer." You'd be like, "Yeah, dude, I just gave you like a subscription for 3 different AI platforms, so please don't say this." Right?
yeah, exactly. So in a
Oh,
very
it just cut
recent
off.
example,
Huh.
yeah, sorry, in a
So it
very
just,
recent example, one of my developers who's really a front end person, right? He's doing all the Svelte code in the Svelte framework. And I had to tell him, okay, now we have to do Svelte, but in the back end, somebody needs a little bit of PHP code change. Now, PHP is like alien to a lot of people. It is really
yeah.
godsend for others, right? It's like two different worlds, right? But this developer of mine had not even seen PHP ever, right? But what he can do now is he can take the existing PHP code, which is already there, and he can give that sample to the AI, and he can say, okay, based on this, I need one more function which will do something else, right? And AI exactly rightly generates that additional code and gives it to him. So now he has that much common sense that okay, if this is the code, he can see what the code does, he can put it in and he can test it out. Right now, this is an enabler, right? This is actually an enabler. This is something that makes his skill go into a different direction, which he would have never touched.
So I want to ask you, and
Yeah.
have we crossed the line between enabler and replacement? You know, are we at the point where you're saying you know what, I'm just going to get one of business analyst to
Hmm.
do this? Or are we still far away from that in terms of coders?
We are at some distance from there. The main reason for that, I think, it's not just that what AI can do in terms of the intelligence factor. The main problem is the context. Okay, the amount of context that an AI system can hold
Yeah,
is limited.
it's still limited. So you can't
It's
feed the
still
whole
limited.
code base into it. I saw one video about that, and some
Yeah,
dude was trying to explain that you can set it up so that you're feeding in, you're really cherry picking context. But my thought was, okay, you got a whole system and you're cherry picking suddenly you do need the technical guy to decide what's important to feed the AI and what's not.
yeah,
um
and that is reflected in this in this method that people use in AI, right? I mean, as in the pattern of usage is still a function at a time. It's still
yeah, yeah.
like, you can generate a function, you can generate something a little bit more than that, but you cannot expect much more than that at this time. But it's not because it cannot generate it, it is more because the
Only
context
certain
of that
information
whole
can go in.
application it's not possible to properly feed it. Okay, and the LLMs also have an internal limitation of how much context they can make sense of and actually apply properly.
So
you know
here's a follow-up question for somebody who's like, what the hell is all this gobbledygook?
Hmm.
Programmers are limiting the amount of information they can stick into the system, so they're still limited in their functionality. But the context is dependent not on the hard. Is it dependent on the power in your? Is it dependent on the power in your system? Say you have a box, mega box with all kinds of GPUs, or your bought AWS computing on or Azure online. Is it based on that, or is it based on the model, specific model that has been created using $1 trillion by Facebook? Like that context, the size of the document, you can. It's is it both?
I think it's more the latter than the GPU, right? Because the amount of computing power that you put in place, that is going to only affect the speed. So you might have to wait for longer if your computing compute is less, right? It will not directly affect the ability of the model. So the ability of the model is inherent in the ability of the model, like how it was made, right? And if the model was capable, and we do have models which are capable of taking in a million token context, right? From Google and all the latest models have a million token context, but that million token context still has to be tested in the
Oh,
programming world.
large. So those large million token context models, Olama 4. You know 405B 3.1 from Facebook, those are those still have minimum hardware requirements, right? Otherwise, so here's this other thing is like, I was trying out anything LLM on my chintzy laptop, and I got the feeling that I might be wrong about it, is that I got the feeling that if your laptop is underpowered, your model is going to hallucinate. Have you seen that in experience, or is that simply a case of it either runs the model or it doesn't, but the hallucination doesn't depend on the model. It doesn't depend on your hardware. But I don't know. I mean, and we can come back to this at some other point. But what's been your experience with when hallucinations show up and when they don't? When does the model
So
make up shit and when it doesn't?
yeah, hallucination should not be dependent on your computing power at all.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
The reason for that is that even though we are talking about intelligence, okay, ultimately an LLM is a statistical model. Okay. And a statistical model has a defined path and a defined way of working, which is actually repeatable. It's not that it is repeatable. And to make it, imaginative, actually there is randomness that is introduced deliberately. Okay, so you have, when you see, you have this factor of 0 to 1, and you can adjust that, on various playgrounds. That is adding to a randomness, which is like deliberate. But if you had removed that completely and you said zero, then the model would function in a deterministic way, more or less, right? So the hallucination that happens actually happens again because of the inherent in built-in system of the LLM. It will not get affected by whether you're using it on more power, unless there is something about the LLM which has said that, okay, if I can't finish something in 10 seconds or 5 seconds, I'm going to skip these steps. Okay, but that is generally not the case. It will go through the entire
Okay,
process. It will just make you
got it.
wait longer. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Now, just to come back to your, dev team example, and this is, the reason I'm coming back to it is because it has general application, right, to so many other disciplines. Um, are you saying that now you guys are your team is going to do things faster, do more things? There are three different things. You can do it faster, you can do more, and you can do more with less. So do you see, for example, when you're trying to, if you want to bid for work or do work, um, are you just going to have a smaller team, or are you going to promise more?
I think all of this is true, right? I mean, once you have a situation where a person can do more, then obviously you need less to do the same thing in terms of human input, at least. Okay, you may need more in terms of computing facilities or whatever, because you're going to use AI. But definitely it will affect um, the you know the number of resources I have to put. Now, as an example, one very important impact that this is having is, earlier there was a lot of resistance to writing test cases, for example, right? People, like, test cases are very important. Test cases are required in code. But what would happen is that test cases are not actually giving you some output ultimately. I mean, it's not a functional part of the application, right? So it's something you write to make sure that your application is proper. Now, as a natural human tendency, people would write some test cases and then they would leave it. Now the test cases are generated very easily with AI. So even though you may be writing the same amount of code as a functional output, you are now writing a lot more code for testing, for example. So your quality of your code can
Is
directly get
massively,
impacted. Yeah. So
massively.
so it, yeah. So in the past, I would have actually had one person just dedicated to, maybe said, okay, this guy is just developing the functionality. You write the test code and make sure that every single, it's 100% coverage is there or something of that sort, right? Uh,
So what you're
Now
saying
that is
is
gone.
QA is dead. So you're saying
Well,
QA
I
is
won't say
dead.
QA is dead, but the the writing of
Oh,
test cases
I'm
just to.
I think there's some audio, huh? Just went away for a second.
Yeah. So you
Yeah,
you
now
see
it's
what is happening is, it is impacting in a way that the quality of code and the quality of application intrinsically is also improving if you use it in the right way, right? So you say that, okay, now that my developing can develop something in 1 day instead of 2 days, I'm going to use that one extra day to ask him to make sure that it is 100% coverage all the time, in test cases. And it's not that in the past he would have left it at, okay, here are the 70 most important cases, I've covered them, and let's forget about the last 30 because it's really not so important. That kind of thing is gone.
so then, um, you're going to demand higher, but does this mean that when you're hiring somebody, the fact that you're using AI tools, does it make it easier to hire a newbie or harder? Like, is it that now when you hire somebody, your quality requirements and your workflow has become different, and so you have to again bring that person into your workflow, maybe not in learning a new language, but in some other way? Or is it that now that you've got the AI tools, you're bringing in a minder and you're like, I'll find some damn guy from across the street. Anybody, come in. You can be a star here. let me get my AI tools out, and if you listen to me carefully, you follow my instructions. Don't worry, you'll be the ace programmer of the century. Is that what the situation is? Which one is?
No, no. Actually, it's quite the opposite, actually. Okay. So now, if you look at it, AI, of course, has had one impact already, which we are seeing when we recruit. And I'm talking about when we are talking about recruiting a little bit more like out of college people. If you're looking at that, we are not talking about like when we're talking about
Yeah,
experienced people, it's a different thing, right? So
yeah,
if we're talking about the initial recruitment from the college, one of the problems that we are seeing, and this is a bit strange, but we are seeing that is they have gotten so used to using AI that at some point they think that they always will have AI to do everything and AI, and they're dependent on AI. Okay, and that's not what we want. And we are very clear about that. Okay, if I wanted somebody who's dependent on AI, then I don't need you. Use it. I can use AI directly, right? What you need are people who understand, who can work perfectly if there was no AI, right?
oh, that's
You
too much to ask.
remove AI.
That's ridiculous. That's crazy. No, I mean, I guess what you're saying is, you ask a model to generate some code for you, and you know, your programmer, she has to be able to look at the code when it spits out garbage and actually still be able to read it. She just saves time typing it out and coming up with it. She still has to be able to read it and
Exactly.
understand the AI code that AI generates.
Exactly. Every programmer has to be completely capable of writing code in Notepad. Okay. When I say Notepad, I mean in an
So you're such a
IDE.
demanding. I won't swear on camera. Okay, but maybe I'll swear. But next video.
Yeah.
So basically, like you're demanding. This is all probably gonna violate some diversity and inclusion policy because obviously discriminatory to demand skills. So you're demanding that they know that they're good enough to write in Notepad, but that'll be like. But you see, Notepad is a development environment, right? It's where you write and
In
then
a way,
you know, and then you go to your command line and
compiler.
say, compile this,
Yes.
run this, blur.
Yes.
Now I start.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of coding, and the other part is what do you know? What's the language you know? What's the language you're going to read and understand, right? So how far are we um, from newbies? From hiring newbies who use code and then use code to troubleshoot, right? And I'll tell you this as a person who, I'm now generating my bash scripts, and then I just tell it what to do, and then I spit the error message back at it, right?
Hmm.
And then I generate, and so now I'm creating these mini apps, and I'm finding
Hmm.
that some AI tools are better than others,
Right.
right? Some like visual, no, Venice.ai once it generates garbage code, you'll send the error message. It'll not be able to fix it. Once it
Yes, it
goes
won't.
down a bad way, it's not. Sonnet will fix it, right?
Hmm.
So you're right now saying we need you to know Notepad. We need you to be able to code without it. But in the back of your mind that everything is so much easier now, right?
So we are not saying that you will use Notepad to code. We are saying you should be able to use Notepad to code.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't say that, okay, here's Notepad, start coding. No. But when we are testing you, when we are evaluating you, we will take away all the crutches that you have, right? And we say, okay, here's Notepad, here is the documentation on Google, go write your code, right? Get your errors, fix it. Okay. Because AI at this
Bunch of
moment,
demanding. That's what you guys are. Just.
you have to be, right? Because be a person who
Oh,
understands
it cut out. It cut
exactly
out.
what
By the
you're
way,
doing.
the audio cut
Oh,
out just was half.
okay. So only
Yeah.
a person who really knows what he's doing. Okay, only he should be having the right to drive. Okay, it's like, okay, you have a fully automatic car. Okay, unless that car reaches the level where of autonomy where you will never need to touch it, you will always need the driver to be fully capable of driving in case anything goes wrong, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of that same logic, right? That if you are not a driver, you don't be behind a wheel. Okay, you can be the passenger. That's all you can be, right? You if you are behind a wheel, you have to know fully well how to take control. Okay, so the AI is just helping.
So what I'm hearing so far is it's having some impact on your expectations as to hiring, having massive impact on your ability to deliver and promise, right? And so are you gonna, or forget, you don't have to answer personally in your thing. Do you think that folks at Infosys or folks in companies that have a small IT department, are they going to hire more or less because of this? Are they going to have, what are they going to, what do you think people will do? Do you think they'll hire less? You think that when you have a small department, they'll be like, now you got AI tools, we're going to expect more from you? Or are they going to say, we're going to get rid of positions? What's your, and where do you think that people will be getting rid of positions? Where do you think people will hire positions?
I think it will definitely reduce the need for hiring more people. I think that is in a logical way, that is true. Um, the obvious reason is that there are there is a huge acceleration ultimately. Okay. Uh, if I am expecting somebody to write code, I am expecting him to type at least. Okay, right? Because, I mean, without AI, I would have expected him to type, and that itself is a time-consuming process. Even if I know the thing I have to do very well, I still have to type it in. I have to still check it. I have to review it and all that. Now, the least that AI can do, the least is it can generate the code. So it has already typed it for you. Now, if it is not a very complex piece of code, you can just eyeball it and you will be able to see that, yes, it's doing the right thing logically. And you can put it into your code. And in most cases, a simple piece of code will always work right from from AI into this. So you're saving time. There's no doubt about it, right? You're saving time. The second thing that it is doing for you is it is increasing your skill set, right? I mean, it is complementing your skill set. And how that works is, okay, I used to write code, but I needed somebody else to write a Linux script to do something, right? Something small, just move from here to there. But now I don't need that person to for that purpose because I can ask and generate a script and it will generate that simple script. So I never knew Bash as a coder, but now I don't need to, but I don't even need to give it to somebody who knows Bash. I can just generate a small script, put it in and use
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
good
you see,
stuff.
so that's one side of it. That's where we are using AI, which is general purpose. The second area you
But
have to
here's the
keep
thing.
in mind.
So keep in mind, like, so I'm just thinking in my mind while you're describing this is what happened with web design, right?
Yeah,
In 96, 95, 96, 97, everybody was doing web design and web design became easier and easier. But because the demand for web design massively went up, web pages massively went up, um, there were jobs for web designers until now. AI is getting rid of web designers, right? But maybe, it seems like the web designer job was alive until at least about was really alive until about 10 years ago, having started in 95. But I might be wrong about that. You crinkled your eyes, so I was thinking, he doesn't agree. But you see, the thing is, what I'm wondering is like, okay, so all these tools have come up, and all these people are going to have these fancy ideas to make tools, and 90% of what we do in our lives is total rubbish anyway. So
yeah,
we're just going to find more people are going to find faster ways of doing new kinds of rubbish. I don't know. I mean, I'm speculating here. So I'm just
yeah.
wondering if that is an option in that, what it might be that, you will spend time, you'll still bill your clients as much as you used to, but your time will be spent doing other things. Or maybe your clients will bill out the same, will package the same amount of money that they're going to be originally spending. They'll still spend it, but because they're like, wow, this is cool. And they'll just have more projects.
Um, See, that all depends on many things. I don't think clients will spend more because something is cool. I think, most clients have a very specific need, and that need, the solution for that need is what they're trying to get through software, right? So unless you're looking at a product and the product is again supposed to be used by some other people and all, and then they want something fancy, that's okay. That's a separate thing. But if you look at the enterprise market, okay, then they have certain functionality to achieve. And the most important thing for them is reliability, robustness, making sure that it is absolutely 100% on the dot, right? Those kind of things. They are not going to add more features just because AI is there, right?
Wow.
So, yeah. So what you can expect is, okay, uh, you can get better code now. Okay, why you can get better code is because for the same amount of money, more automation has gone into making, like I said, test cases, QA, automated
Well,
stuff, which
and
will.
that's what, it's not
Hmm.
really automation, right? Because the thing is that what's happening is it's not that it's doing, it's you're automating what you did before. It's like Claude is doing better stuff,
Yeah.
right? It's not just doing the shitty product that you had before better, faster. It's not like typing on an electronic keyboard versus a typewriter. It's like the content is better, right?
Yes, of course. Now, here we have to distinguish between how AI is going to be affecting creators, like storytellers or
Well,
articles written by them versus coding, right? So those are like.
but quality of coding,
Hmm.
right? Quality of coding. It's like, when you have generated tools that automate your programming process, then that's faster, and you need a few people. What I worry about is that the AI is generating code much better than your freshers who
Hmm.
can code using Notepad. The potential is
Yeah.
that AI will generate code that they can code using Notepad, but they can never code as good as whatever new model shows up in 6 months.
Yes, but then that comparison is not right, right? Because a fresher is not going to give code to the enterprise. Okay, a fresher is going to be below somebody who's actually responsible. And it's the person who's responsible whose quality we are talking about. And that person is going to be having at least 7 to 8 years of experience, and he will be writing code at a level that is enterprise
Yes.
quality, right? So the fresher is just maybe there to assist. He's coming up on that level. You're right that the AI today can write code better than what a fresher will write, right? But the fresher is just learning. He's getting to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
point where he will
Well,
be able to deliver.
I'll reference a conversation I had with it's a partner at a Paris law firm I was talking to, and I said, this AI stuff as a lawyer, it's crazy
Yeah,
what's happening with AI. And he said, yeah, we don't need junior lawyers anymore. We just don't
exactly.
need them.
That's right.
It's very bad. I mean, he felt bad about it, right? But he said,
Yeah.
well, we actually don't need junior lawyers anymore because AI will just do the stuff that junior lawyers would give us, and we know the stuff, and we know the client, so we're gonna deal with the client, and we're gonna fix the stuff for him or her, and that's it. So nobody is going to be around to spend money training these people. So the other thing is that,
Hmm.
say you know a person that does a certain type of document, they use AI, and eventually they die because we all do. And you know, so I'm like, okay, so that person knew, that person had a certain quality standard for product, and then they generate used AI to generate something and oversee it. Now you don't need a junior anymore. So how is the junior going to be able to review product? I mean, that is assuming that things are constant. I mean, at this point, I'm wondering if a year from now, 2 years from now, nobody will know jack shit. And then what they'll be doing is they'll be taking documents from one agent, one AI spits out, and feeding it to another AI. I mean, this is before we get to layer zero. So maybe we won't do layer zero in this discussion, but it's a little. So I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like I'm thinking that that model of and this is sort of ties in with the job displacement issue, right? Is um, it's doing things better and better,
Yes.
and it's automating. So it's both doing things better and better, and it's doing things faster and faster,
Yes.
right? And it's interesting when you said that they're not going to ask for more, right?
Yeah.
So that's, if they're doing outsourced product development, they might ask for more. But if they're regular clients, they're probably not going to ask for more. So when thinking about the impact of AI on jobs, we have to keep that in mind that, okay, demand won't necessarily skyrocket.
Absolutely. See, so we have to look at all of these things in the context of time. Okay, immediate versus future. Okay, now on the immediate time scale, and as far as software is concerned, okay, on the immediate time frame, as far as software is concerned, um, two things are happening. One is, yes, there is this um, penetration of AI, which is helping reduce the need for developers. But on the flip side, simultaneously, all software needs to be upgraded to AI. And when I say all software means what? That okay, today you have SAP or you have Salesforce,
SAP
for
HANA.
example, say for SAP,
Yep.
Salesforce, cloud, etc. All software will have to be AI enabled. And what I mean by AI enabled is they will need AI built into the systems so that humans, the business guys, can just write some English sentence saying, I need this, and it will take care of it. Okay. So there is this transition period where all software needs to get upgraded to have its own AI. Okay. So a general purpose AI will not always do the job best for, which is,
So would you
like,
say
for example, for SAP.
so you're saying something like what happened in the year 2000 with the boom in jobs for people who were there
Hmm.
for the transition, and for
Oh,
the
Y2K.
uninitiated and those who are too young to remember, um, up to the year 2000, there was this gigantic scare about 16-bit versus 32-bit processors because and this I might be getting wrong because I'm saying this as a layperson, but basically 16-bit processors had a hard-coded date for the end of time, and 32-bit processors could handle dates much further into the future. So software written for 32 16-bit processors had to be changed to account for this hard coding. Now, actually, Mo, I don't know if maybe you know this, maybe you don't. We'll forgive you if you don't. But was it the fact that the software had to be written for 32-bit, or was it the fact that, what was it, 1965 or whatever, was hard coded into software applications?
So it's not so much about 16 bits versus 32 bits of CPU, because a 16-bit CPU can also have data structures which are 32-bit. Okay, so if you have a C compiler and all that,
Yeah,
you already had the compiler taking care of number of bytes used for any data, like a long
yeah,
data type or
yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. So it's not
So,
that.
so,
But the problem
so
was,
the
yeah,
date came from where? Where was that hard coded date? It was sitting in the hardware or the software?
no, it was a software. It was
Okay.
like when most of the software was written. And remember that today we are living in a prolific software age where everybody knows software, everybody writes software, and every person, company has software expertise. In the
Yeah.
1990s, software was really a very small part of people's world, right?
Yeah.
And software was like a specialized thing that Microsoft did, Oracle did, DBase did, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the fear was that when they wrote the software, they didn't think far enough, right? They said, okay, 10 years, 15 years. But the software that was there, which was like, for example, running the airports, running the airlines, nobody changes that software that often, right? So if you bought a
Yeah.
software in
So,
1980s,
so
it's
were
going
they
to
hard?
continue.
That
Yeah.
date was a constant in that software that they had to change. It was being used like that in 16, like in the software they had coded.
They didn't know that. That was the fear that not everybody was sure how all the code that they were using was written and whether there would be a problem. So the whole effort was to go through every software that was in use and make sure that first of all check if when it rolls over will it work, and if it doesn't have that capability then add that capability. So
So
knowing that itself was a question.
this is fantastic, man, for this show because we always all massages, well, all messages need a happy ending. So here we are. We've got a happy ending for this point, which is that all this might happen, but because everything needs to be AI enabled, we'll see a temporary increase in folks like SAP or Salesforce or Postgres or all the other enabling AI within that. You know,
Yes,
and
that is necessary for all software.
so I guess this is a theme that we'll keep coming back to. And we have burnt what, half an hour on this. So
Yeah.
now maybe you know what? Maybe since we have this freewheeling discussion, we'll do one point until we kill our viewers of boredom. Or some such, or they're just this is actually they're rolling on the floor laughing right now, or something like that. But see, here's my thing: is you've been looking at the latest, right? And
Yeah.
every day there's new stuff. I saw some Python library on scraping websites. That's fine.
Yeah.
But right now, some people are using ChatGPT. Some people are using Microsoft Copilot. Um, I have been working primarily on. I used ChatGPT last year, the free version, because I'm cheap. Um, and then this year I'm using Claude and Venice, right? Claude until I'm out of my free messages, and then Venice. What are you using, and are you paying for stuff, and what's cheap right now?
I think in most cases, free is good enough. Okay. I think that we are using various AI models. Okay.
Okay,
And the models really differ in their capabilities, really differ. Like there are coding specific models who really generate good code compared to even, what you would think is a good code on, say, ChatGPT or something. But
or
then,
Claude, huh?
yeah, or Claude or something, right? So if you go to CodeStrill, for example, from Mistral, it is a great code generator. Okay, and when I say the great code generator means it know it's designed for code, so it focuses on code and it gives you some explanation, but doesn't go overboard with the explanation stuff and keeping the code small and things like. No, it writes code first and gives you an explanation, and that code is better than most other LLMs that you might use. Now, I'm not saying that it does that all the time and every time, but in general, for example, that is what I've observed. And so I think every LLM, since the properties of the LLM completely depend on how they were built, and the architecture of the LLM is a small part, actually, surprisingly, of the quality of the LLM. The massive part, the 90% of the quality of LLM comes from the data and the sequencing and how that was organized and things like that, right? So a huge effort is actually in the part of how these things are done, you know?
Well, but what I'm
So
wondering is, so you're using CodeStrel
yeah,
in your work. Are you paying for CodeStrel?
CodeStrel is available for free
And
on
it's
Mistral side.
and so you'll go to the Mistral site, you stick it in.
Yeah.
That's it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, until not only that, there is a CodeStrel model. I don't know if the one that is there right now or not, but most CodeStrel, that CodeStrel as well as a CodeStrel Mamba, which is a recent optimization of the architecture. I think many of these are actually available for you to download and install an open source, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but the
But
problem is that,
you gotta watch for
yeah,
which is allowing commercial, which is not allowing commercials, stuff
no,
like that.
they mentioned it in the license, and only those which are available, meaning they're available officially, right? So if you go to Olama and say, okay, I want the coastal model, you can download it officially. So there's nothing about it. It's
No, no.
like,
I was on this. I was listening to something, and they said that Llama 3.05B or 4.05B or whatever 3.1
hmm,
is free for anything if you don't use it for more than if you have a business that doesn't support X million users. Basically, they want to say that
yes,
everybody but their competitors can use it for free,
yeah.
right?
I think it's I think and you are the lawyer, so you know the law and you read the terms. We also read the terms, but we stop at, okay, can I use it, and can I
So
use
boring to
the,
read it down.
yeah, we stop at the point that can I use the output without the always whenever we check licenses, our concern is only one: can we use it, A, and B, if it is something which generates output, that output should not have any limitation
Okay.
of use,
So
right?
here's the thing. By the way, just as an aside, I would just go and ask Claude, hey, can I use this model for this? He'll tell
Yeah,
me.
but at this moment in time, most of the models, um, you can rely on them, but you cannot really rely on them. You need
Yeah,
human validation.
especially if it's new information,
Yes,
right?
yes. So
Um,
I would be able to go to Claude and get it, and he would say, yes, you can do it. But I would not be able to use that actually in my enterprise unless I got it revalidated from Hari Balaraman, right? Because then
exactly.
Hari
The other
would
time
tell me,
I got Claude to calculate my frequent flyer points, and it was beautiful,
yeah.
but it got the answer wrong. Right? It was right?
And that's the
Like the Coles Notes version is for coding. You're doing CodeStrel. What is
Hmm.
the other stuff that you're using for general? Like because obviously as an org or as a person, you are also using generative AI for other things, other models, right? So are you using Copilot? Are you using Grok? Are you using Claude? Are you using ChatGPT? What are you using and how do we use it? Like, because I have some knowledge, I'm using a couple of models and you were probably using other models. So I'm just sort of curious about it.
I would say all of the above. Okay, all of the above. Because see, it's not just that we use AI for use like for personal use, right? I mean, not just as a human, but we also use models for applications. So when we use models for applications, there are other considerations, right? Like for example, we have many cases where we use RAG, right? Retrieval augmented generation. So
So
when we
retrieval augmented
use,
generation, a bunch of docs, your well of information, your model goes to your well of information before your request goes to your well of information, your model dips into that before it dips into its own brain. And so you get more personalized and localized and relevant
yeah,
results. So you're doing RAG in your org
so
right now. Are you doing RAG?
yeah, we have many customers who need RAG because RAG is the answer to how do I get my internal information accessible via generative AI to my whoever I want. Okay, could be my
No,
internal
no,
employees or
by the way, you have to do your
Hmm.
plug, right? You have to do your like business. So who are we, and what do you do?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. That's the most important. So we are Acumen Cognitive Engineering, and we are a software development firm. We've been in this software stuff for 25 years now. 1999 is when I started. Went through some different company transitions. Currently, we are Acumen Cognitive
I'm gonna
Engineering.
keep asking you this question. So
Yeah.
whoever watches these videos will hear it anyway. But see, here's the thing. Okay, so you've got some RAG for
Yeah.
retrieval augmented generation, which is local docs of companies. You are running, you're proposing running models locally. But I mean, for you personally, because people watching this video will be wondering what are they going to look at for what. So, what is your personal preference in your go-to model for your personal use for answers?
Yeah. So my short answer is that for code, I start with CodeStream first.
Fine, that
Okay.
we
It's
got. We
not
got the
that. Yeah.
yeah.
If it,
Other
yeah,
than that,
for most other things, I will use Claude. Okay. I okay. I don't want to be critical, but I rarely use Google Gemini at this time because for some reason, it has the latest information. Actually, it
huh.
almost seems to have a very latest information, but it sort of loses out on the context. So if I've got a chat going on, it just goes somewhere else. It doesn't take into consideration where I'm coming from. So that's something they need to fix. But about 6 months ago, Chat GPT would have been my first go-to. That has
Yes.
changed. Now, Chat GPT is something I go to if I'm not satisfied or I want to double check
Yeah.
or I want to generate it some other way, then I go to Chat GPT. Okay. Otherwise, I between Coach till this and even Llama 3.1 is fantastic. So Grok. Okay. So I go to Grok Cloud.
So Grok, I went to grok.ai and I was having problems accessing it. How do you go to grok.ai to access Grok?
So, okay. So now when you're talking about Grok, are you talking about the Elon Musk Grok or you're talking about Grok Cloud?
You're talking to a dude who knows nothing, man. I mean, seriously,
Okay.
I'm hearing about Grok. In fact, you mentioned Grok and you said this is zero cost, whatever. So what does that mean? What's Grok in
So
terms of?
Grok, yeah. So two people are using this name Grok. Okay. One is the Elon Musk has X and X has an AI called Grok. And that is available to the paid users of X. That is Twitter, right? The paid
Oh,
users. So that's
yeah.
Grok. I'm talking about what has come out as Grok Cloud. Grok Cloud is just actually a provider of hardware, meaning it's just a cloud. It's an
So what's
infrastructure.
their website? Is that grok.ai or what is it?
No, it's Grok Cloud.
Oh, it's Grok Cloud. And do they
Yeah.
have a generative AI front end, or do you have to go in through a program that makes
Okay.
calls to
So
their?
it's sorry, it's Grok Cloud is the name, but the URL is grok.com.
Okay,
Grok.com.
it's grok.com. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's why I went grok.ai and I was getting like diddly squat.
No,
Um,
that's
okay.
grok.com. And the thing about Grok is that their claim to fame is that they've created something known as an LPU, and it's a trademark term. It's it's basically a
Logical
language
processing.
processing unit.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's a language processing unit. So
Language
it's kind
processing.
of it's like hardware level, AI. Like they have custom like a CPU, a GPU, they've created an LPU. So that
Okay.
LPU is much faster at inference than a normal GPU would be because it is dedicated to that task. Um,
So so but Grok Cloud or grok.com, is it like going to Chat GPT where there's this thing where you ask it questions, or going to Claude and you'll ask it questions? No.
Not exactly. It's not exactly. So it is more like a playground. If you're familiar with playground. So for Chat GPT or anything, they have actually a consumer level interface, which is what we use, right? So you go and you actually chat and there's a chat. Even Claude has that and all that. Grok is really for a developer. Okay. So Grok is giving you an interface where you can select one of the open source models,
Yeah.
but importantly, right now they don't have the 400 billion llama model. They have the the 70 billion and the 8 billion, and then they have a customized version, and then they have Mistral and whatever is open source. About 8 to 10 models are available. But the good thing is it's really fast, and it is completely free. And even the API is free. Now, when I say API, I mean I could actually use Grok Cloud in my software and it still be free, but it is rate limited. So the API is rate limited. So I can only use so much. So it is good enough for testing a few things, to see that I can compare the different engines, LLMs, but I cannot really use it in production because as soon as I hit it with too many queries, it'll rate limit and I have to wait another minute before I can query again. Yeah, but for human input, it is good enough, and it is in a way unlimited for that.
Okay. Okay. So you're using right now, you're using Claude, you're using Grok, you're using CodeStro um, for your
Code
coding.
generation. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna just throw a question at you that kind of came from Steph. Um, she's an EA.
Okay.
So the question is, uh, how we already talked about jobs. We talked about potential
Yes.
for jobs. So,
Yes.
that's an ongoing tragedy that we're gonna keep
Yeah.
discussing. Uh, but how for a regular office user that generates, that reports, follows up, are you who in your what tools are you using? What interesting tools are you seeing? Or what interesting tools are you using or seeing other people use? In regular business workflow in the company. And I
Um,
mean, I'll pipe in with my thoughts on those as well. So
I think that question right now, it's kind of depends on really what you're doing in your job, right? Obviously. Now, every job is affected.
So
So
like,
if you're a
are you using a document? Like I was chatting with her and I said, gotta check out Otter.ai. But then there was something else. Somebody else came up with something else. So are you
yeah,
using an AI tool for transcription, minutes, meetings?
yes. So
What do you do?
we use Otter AI actually, and
Oh, you really? Okay.
yeah, we do,
How are
we
you
do,
using Otter?
and
How are you using Otter AI? Tell me. I mean, tell us, all of us. We're all listening. So anyway.
yeah. So well, Otter AI is it
Oh,
has a very specific
wait.
purpose.
The sound just cut out. Just say something now.
Yeah, I said Otter AI
Yeah.
has a very specific purpose, right? It is part of your transcription, as in, sorry, it's part of your conversation with anybody, and is it gives you the transcription, it gives you the summary, it gives you the to-do items. So it has the transcription is kind of a standard thing because it just goes through time, but they've done this value addition where you can it itself takes the conversation, figures out what are the points that have to be acted on, and gives you a summary. So you don't have to just go through the transcript again and see, okay, what was it that I discussed. You get to know that, okay, I committed that I will call you back on Tuesday. So it will be listed as your 3 or 4 points. That is the outcome of that
Okay.
conversation, right? So that is very valuable, and also it keeps record. And I think very soon that entire transcript will be fed into some sort of a permanent cloud, and you will always be able to go and say, okay, in my last 5 years, how many people have I committed something, and it'll give you that
Yeah, yeah.
information. So that's probably the
So
next.
you're using Otter now. What else are you using nowadays? What else are you seeing?
So there are many upcoming tools which I find very interesting. I think one of the tools that I saw is where you have a virtual conversation with a virtual person, and that person looks very much like you. I mean, they create a um,
Yeah, yeah. They
yeah,
create a version of you, right? That's bloody scary now.
yeah.
I was gonna say
It's
fudging scary, but I don't want to use the word fudge on
yeah.
live stream or whatever. But have you tried that out?
I did. At this moment, I'm not extremely impressed in the sense that they still have to synchronize the video and what is being said. So what they've done is they've animated you, but they have not animated it in the context of the conversation. So you might see the head moving like this even when you're not saying anything. So that really gives away that you're talking to somebody who's just moving around. It's only the lips move when she's saying, but that's not enough. All the other human gestures are still just random. So that's
So what you're
that's
saying
something they
is
need to fix.
like we won't be
Yeah.
able to like replace us for the next few videos with these guys, with these
Yeah.
AI guys, right? We'll have to sit in front of the screen and talk about stuff.
Yeah.
So that's good stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
well we're coming up to the head there. So what again? This is like we're going to do BTS discussion now behind the scenes. Um,
Yeah.
we should, I guess, what we should do for these is we'll have. I think we should have captioning, but we'll also have chapters, right, of what
Yes.
we discussed. But anyway, just before we go into our meta discussion, not
Yeah.
Facebook meta as in the
Of
old.
course.
Um, so what we looked at today, we chatted about how you use AI in your dev process, how what might happen to your hiring policies. What are you expecting from your new guys? What do you how are you how are you what are your expectations of your old programmers, your existing programmers? And the sobering thought that, well, one sobering thought was that clients are not necessarily going to come up with a menu of new things they want because they know what they want. They only want what they want. However, there is a possibility of a year 2000 style bump in AI
Yeah.
jobs within for legacy software. So that's like one negative, one positive. And then I guess we
I wouldn't call
discussed.
it a very big positive because that's really designed to replace people ultimately, right? So
Yes,
yeah. So ultimately, it's going to actually have a more negative effect on jobs, right?
but
As an
but think
example,
about it. That's what they
yeah.
were saying when the blow up happened in '99, right? They're like, oh my god, what'll happen after that? People came up with like all kinds of stuff, flash games, whatever.
Yeah.
People came up with random things to keep themselves busy and pay
But
each other.
see, AI is different in that sense, right? In this very fundamental way, AI is different. When you're talking about these things, we are talking about a gradual change in technology, right? Your internet bandwidth increased, it enabled new things. Your computing power increased, it enabled new things. None of those directly replace the human. None of them had the capability or even remotely intelligent.
Yeah.
So that's not comparable. What AI is doing is it is directly competing with humans. Okay. And the better it gets, you're directly replacing humans. So all of the technological evolution is not comparable with AI evolution because AI is you at the most you can compare it with saying that okay, human labor, physical human labor got replaced by machines. And you can see that today, right? Where is the human labor? Nowhere, because machines completely replace human labor. And AI has the potential of replacing human mind. So that is the only comparison you can make that okay 150 years ago human labor was everywhere. Your factories worked on human labor, your transportation worked on human labor or animal labor, whatever it is. Today it is zero, practically zero, right? Every single thing is machine. So humans were safe because besides physical we had mental capacity, right? Now the mental capacity is being replaced. You don't have a third capacity. There is no other capacity that a human has, another faculty that a human has that you can turn to, say,
Oh, it's cut
imagination or
out. It's cut out.
something.
Hey, it cut out just for a second.
Yeah. So you could talk about imagination or something like that, and
Oh no, no,
that's there. But
no, no. Imagination. I
yeah,
just saw
those
this
things are
great.
very narrow and small, right? So
No,
once
but
you're human,
I'll give you an example. It's very scary.
hmm,
They're talking about the new Grok model, which is supposed to be great, and they're
hmm,
comparing, the ability to write short stories.
yeah,
And they ran the model writing short stories versus this model versus this model, and they say, oh, it wasn't good because it didn't develop this plot trajectory according to the prompt. I'm like, what the hell? Fuck. Seriously. Like you're telling me that it wrote, like there are 7 billion people on this planet, and there are
Yeah.
6.99999 billion people, 99999 billion people who write crap for
Yeah.
short stories and develop plot badly, right?
Yeah.
So you have this issue where you're going to just run this model and write short stories of very good quality for you.
Yeah.
The imagination component is gone,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But I think that is absolutely true. And also not just in verbal skills, right? We are talking about even in art. So, and there's of course this big debate of what is art really. But if you say that if you loosen the definition and you don't go into something metaphysical and stuff, and you just appreciate what is generated, then art is already being replicated in a way that I would
This
not
is
be able to
Oh, it cut out just for a second. Oh, next one, man, you got to do the
Yeah, I think I'm going
okay.
to use my wired earphones and I'm not going to use these Bluetooth ones. So
Yeah.
we'll,
So that's the other thing. When you do like these wine tastings, people have this glass of wine. They'll be like, oh, it tastes like red brick and olive trees and it's fragrance of decayed uranium and sewage,
yeah,
whatever. They come up with shit like this, and you're like, and I just go back to I've given up on that stuff. I'm not gonna make it.
yeah,
Seriously,
yeah,
not gonna make it. So I've gone back to what somebody, this guy from West Virginia, once told me, which was, "Hi, if it tastes good, it probably is."
yeah,
Um, and so that's the same rule for art.
yeah, yeah,
If it looks good, it probably is.
yeah,
Um, so anyway, so here's the
yeah,
thing. So we've come close to the mark of the hour, and in our
yeah,
second discussion, we touched on models
yeah,
that you're using. We also discussed, you know, yeah, we basically talked about models you're using and how you're using them. And I guess we'll keep comparing models, and maybe we can, every time we do video, we talk about what's the new models and what's changing, right? In
yeah,
addition to apps,
yeah.
you know, um, yeah. So more of
I
the
guess we
same, I
can
guess.
pick it up in our next episode.
Next episode. And we haven't discussed any of that legal stuff, and so maybe
Oh
we
yeah,
can talk about things like, everyone's getting all fussy about copyright, and
yeah,
I just think it's very uncharted territory. So
yeah.
so maybe in our next video, and then I can tell you about how I'm using it and what I think, how
Yes.
it's going to affect law, because
How it's affecting law itself. How AI
law
is
and
affecting the law.
lawyers, yeah, right, and
Yeah,
how it's just mind-boggling how that's
yeah,
happening, and it's just my lived experience right now about how those things are being done. So
yeah,
I mean, there's the other thing is also, law is a lot like code, not as
yeah,
much as like code as programmers think,
yeah,
but the concept of putting together words
yeah.
is exactly the same as the concept of putting together code.
I think yeah, and even the precision, even that is equally important. Same as code and law, right? Because a paragraph that you write, the wording has to be so precise that it cannot be ambiguous, right? So even though it's not structured syntactically, semantically, it has to be exact. So I think
Yeah,
in
it
that
has to
sense, it
be
is very
exactly
much,
it has to be exactly as vague as you want it to be. But that's the thing about Claude or AI, is
yeah,
that it's really good at that, right?
yeah,
But we can do that
yeah,
in the next video. So good stuff.
yes, yeah. So I think this was a great first episode. I
Well,
think
we'll
I
find out.
enjoyed
Maybe
it.
like we'll get no views. Everybody will trash us. We're boring pieces of whatnot. So we'll have to see. But maybe
Yeah,
we can do some some sound effects. I don't know, during the thing. But we definitely, I guess, need to work out chapters. We can do chapters in YouTube videos, right?
Yeah, first of all, I have to see how this video recording is going to come out because I think in throughout the video, if I'm the guy recording it, I'm not sure. I don't know how it is recorded. I'll probably be in the small corner throughout. So we have to see.
Oh,
I don't know
really?
how it's going to.
Okay, so we have
Yeah.
to set it up. We have to do it like half, right? We have to find a way to do it as a
Yeah. But
and
I
maybe.
don't think that's what's happened this time. We'll have to see. Oh, yeah. I think I made a mistake on that. Said, oh, there is a together mode.
Oh, okay. Well, you know what?
Oh,
Here's another
yeah.
thought. We'll do this
Yeah.
video like this, and then I'll record on my side, and it'll be the exact replacement, or we can just do it together. So up to you.
Yeah.
That's
So we will see. That's okay.
the
But
other thing
it
is
does have
also
some capability.
I don't know if we have the ability, but we can probably put in at least have when we're discussing, say, um, Claude, or we're talking about Grok, we can. I wonder if we can show a window that shows that website, so that people will
Yeah.
see. Oh, okay, they're talking about that. Talking about Grok. Boom.
Yeah.
But at least we can publish this one, and we can doll it up and fancy it up later as we'll just
Yeah.
keep doing videos, and as we can improve videos. You know,
Yes.
like I what's this Robert Murray Smith guy? Fantastic, love his videos, and I see his videos from 8 years ago, and he started out making videos with nothing fancy at
Right.
all, right? He just kept improving little by little. Now it's at a different level of sophistication with cuts and everything like that. So,
Right.
all right. So, shall we declare close?
Yes. Very much. So good. I'll just stop the recording.
Good, good. Yeah. Okay.